Now, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? We often believe that being endlessly available is a virtue. We're taught, implicitly and explicitly, that to be good, to be kind, to be loved is to be accessible. But that's wrong. That's not truth. That's a misrepresentation of moral character. Because in reality, availability, when unchecked, becomes a form of self-erasure. You see, people treat you not based on your potential, not based on your goodness, but based on what you accept. When you make yourself constantly available, emotionally, mentally, physically, you're teaching the world how to treat you. And the lesson they learn is that your time isn't scarce, your attention isn't precious, and your presence is forgettable. Let's consider this psychologically. Availability is a signal of value. When something is rare, it is prized. When something is always there, on demand, without resistance, it fades into the background. This is true in economics, but also in human dynamics. When you pull back, when you begin to say no, when you stop picking up every call or fixing every mess, people pay attention, not because you're punishing them, but because now, finally, they can see you as someone who has boundaries. And boundaries are not walls, they are definitions. They tell the world, this is where I end and you begin. Boundaries are where identity forms. Without them, you're not a person, you're a utility. And a utility gets used. You are not an infinite resource. You are not a bottomless well of energy, attention, or emotional support. Yet far too often, people operate as if they are. They give and give, believing that generosity will earn love, loyalty, or value. But in truth, what is constantly given without boundary becomes invisible. What is always present becomes background noise. The moment you make yourself endlessly accessible, you surrender your authority. You tell the world you have no hierarchy of priorities, no self-respect embedded in your time, and people believe you. They take you at your word, at the word that your actions speak louder than. They begin to treat your presence as a default, not a gift, not a privilege, but a convenience. When a person doesn't regulate their availability, they lose their leverage in every interaction. It becomes impossible to negotiate respect when you've already bartered your dignity for approval. People do not value what is abundant. They desire what is rare, what is costly, what requires effort to attain. Your unchecked availability signals low cost. It tells others you don't believe you're worth protecting. When you answer every call, solve every problem, say yes to every request, you become invisible. Not because you're unseen, but because you're predictable. Predictability is the death of mystery, and mystery is the birthplace of attraction, interest, and reverence. We do not admire what we fully control, we exploit it. Even in nature, what is scarce becomes sacred. Water in the desert is a miracle, but in the floodplain it is ignored, even cursed. The value of anything is dictated by its limits. If your time has no limit, your worth appears to have no weight. You cannot be everything for everyone without becoming nothing to yourself. You dilute your essence every time you abandon your boundaries, and people sense this. They don't always articulate it, but they feel it. And slowly they stop listening when you speak because you've trained them to expect you'll always be there no matter what they do. When you give access to yourself indiscriminately, you erase the natural consequences of others' actions. You shield people from the lessons they need to learn, and you betray the wisdom of your own experience. Your availability becomes a crutch for their dysfunction and a cage for your potential. Powerful people are not always present, they are deliberately present. They choose when to appear. They choose how to engage. Their time is an offering, not a given. And because it is rare, it is treasured. They are not loved for their servitude. They are respected for their discernment. People crave certainty, but they respect clarity even more. When you are always available, you are neither. You become the chaos others exploit to avoid their own responsibilities. They call and you run. They fall and you carry them. They disrespect and you return. And each time, your value is silently downgraded. You teach others how to treat you with every moment you offer or withhold. If you give without pause, you create an unspoken contract. I am always here, no matter what. And people will test that contract, not maliciously, but inevitably. Human nature leans toward comfort, and comfort breeds carelessness. In every system, scarcity breeds demand. This is true in markets, in nature, and in relationships. If you want to be remembered, you cannot be consumed. If you want to be valued, you must be missed. To be missed, you must sometimes disappear. Being less available doesn't mean being cruel, it means being intentional. It means recognizing that your time is currency and spending it wisely. It means understanding that every yes is a no to something else, often something internal, something vital, something screaming for your attention that you've ignored in favor of others. When you become too accessible, you become misused, not because others are inherently ungrateful, but because you have failed to establish the terms of engagement. You've let your worth be decided by need instead of merit. People do not cherish what they do not earn. They may like it, they may enjoy it, but they will not revere it. You are not revered when you are always an option. You are revered when your presence is earned through mutual effort, respect, and alignment. Your time is the most non-renewable resource you possess. Every moment you give cannot be returned. Yet many spend their time like loose change, scattered across obligations that yield no return. Then they wonder why they feel bankrupt emotionally, mentally, spiritually. When you stop being so available, you force others to pause. You disrupt their expectations. You introduce the radical idea that your presence must be earned, not assumed. That shift alone is enough to awaken dormant respect in the minds of those who took you for granted. You cannot fully step into your potential while you're constantly stepping in to fix someone else's chaos. Greatness demands solitude. Growth requires space. Purpose needs silence. If you are always occupied, you are never becoming. The world does not slow down for those who give too much. It runs them over. And when you burn out, when you vanish from exhaustion, you will find that most of those you helped will move on, not because they are cruel, but because they were never taught to honor your sacrifice. You were a service. Availability without discernment is emotional slavery. It is a quiet, noble-sounding form of self-destruction. You smile while crumbling, you give while bleeding, and you call it love. But love without boundaries is not love, it is codependence in disguise. Let others miss you. Let them wonder where you went. Let them question what changed, because in that space, they begin to see your worth. They begin to reflect. And most importantly, you begin to remember that your life was never meant to be lived at the mercy of other people's schedules. Presence is power, but only when it is chosen, only when it is rare, only when it comes from a place of fullness, not fatigue. If your presence costs you your peace, it is not presence, it is performance. And performances always end with exhaustion. Withdraw with grace. Return with strength. Let your absence speak what your overgiving could not. Let people adjust to your boundaries or let them fall away. Either way, you regain your value, not through explanation, but through execution. And in the silence that follows your withdrawal, you will hear it, the sound of your worth returning to you. You do not know who you are until you know what you are not. Without limits, you are formless. You drift into the roles others create for you, and you lose yourself in the process. You become everyone's version of you except your own. Boundaries are the edges of the self. Without them, you disappear. The refusal to set boundaries is the fastest way to erase your identity. You become a vessel filled with the demands of others, shaped by external expectations, drained by every passing voice that lays a claim to your time, energy, or attention. You say yes when you mean no. And every yes you give against your will is another brick in the wall that separates you from your own soul. People do not respect those who refuse to define themselves. They may like them, use them, rely on them, but they do not respect them. Because when you do not value your own boundaries, neither will anyone else. Your silence gives permission. Your compliance becomes the blueprint for how others engage with you. You teach people what is acceptable by what you tolerate. Every act of self-betrayal begins with the fear of disappointing someone else. You trade authenticity for approval. You trade freedom for comfort. And slowly, invisibly, you vanish. not all at once, but piece by piece. Every time you swallow your truth, every time you avoid conflict, every time you suppress your instincts to keep the peace. Peace, bought at the price of identity, is not peace. It is surrender. Boundaries are not rejection, they are revelation. They reveal what matters to you, what you stand for, what you refuse to carry. When you set a boundary, you are not pushing others away. You are drawing a line that says, this is me, this is mine, this is sacred. And anything unwilling to honor that is unworthy of access. When you live without boundaries, you invite manipulation. Not always intentional, but always inevitable. Because when others see that your lines can be crossed without consequence, they will cross them again. What is unprotected becomes available, and what is always available is never cherished. You must become the guardian of your own life. No one else will do it for you. To define yourself is an act of courage. It means facing the discomfort of disappointing others. It means being willing to lose relationships that were built on your silence. It means risking misunderstanding. But the cost of not doing so is far greater. You may lose others by setting boundaries, but you will lose yourself by not setting them. You cannot become whole while being everything for everyone. You cannot become real while constantly adjusting yourself to fit the mold someone else provides. Boundaries are the birthplace of individuality. They carve out the space where you begin and where the world ends. Without that space, you have no self to protect. Identity is not discovered, it is created. And it is created through the difficult, deliberate act of saying, no, this is not for me. It is forged in the fire of resistance, in the willingness to draw lines others will not like. Every person of integrity has boundaries. Every leader, every visionary, every soul that stands out from the crowd, without exception, has drawn lines and enforced them. The absence of boundaries invites chaos. In relationships and families and work, wherever boundaries are absent, disorder will reign. Because human nature gravitates toward the path of least resistance. If you always say yes, others will stop asking. If you never say stop, others will assume there is no limit. If you never express your needs, others will assume you have none. You were not born to be agreeable, you were born to be whole. You were born to walk in alignment with your values, your truth, your inner compass. And that alignment requires conflict, it requires confrontation. It requires the willingness to be misunderstood by others in order to be understood by yourself. Boundaries do not mean selfishness, they mean self-awareness. They are the declaration that you are a person with purpose, not a tool to be used. You are not here to be consumed. You are not here to carry burdens that are not yours. You are not here to make everyone else comfortable while silently suffering. The strength of your identity is reflected in the strength of your boundaries. When your lines are clear, your presence becomes unmistakable. You walk differently. You speak with conviction. You stop shrinking to fit spaces that were never built for you. You stop apologizing for existing. And that shift echoes out. Others feel it. They may resist, but they cannot ignore it. You do not need to explain your boundaries to those who honor you. The ones who truly see you will respect your lines without needing justification. But those who benefited from your silence will protest the loudest when you begin to speak. That protest is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that you are evolving. Growth threatens those who only knew you in your smaller form. The people who get angry when you set boundaries are the ones who are benefiting from your lack of them. Let them be angry. Let them be confused. Let them walk away if they must. Because what you gain in return is clarity, integrity, and peace. Peace that is not conditional on pleasing others. Your boundaries are your sovereignty. They are the fortress that protects your inner world. They are the terms and conditions of your existence. Without them, you are open to anything. And open to anything is another word for lost. You cannot stand for yourself if you will not stand up to others. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to disagree. You are allowed to say, This is not okay with me. You are allowed to change your mind, to walk away, to close the door and lock it. You are allowed to protect your time, your energy, your sanity. You are allowed to guard your peace as fiercely as you once guarded other people's comfort. When you set boundaries, you stop managing other people's emotions and start managing your own life. You stop rescuing people who refuse to grow. You stop over-explaining. You stop editing your words to be digestible for those who refuse to chew on truth. You start living on your own terms, not with cruelty, but with clarity. Every time you enforce a boundary, you reinforce your self-worth. You tell yourself, I matter enough to protect. You build evidence that you are trustworthy to yourself. You restore the connection between your voice and your values, and that restoration is the beginning of self-respect. You cannot fully love yourself while allowing others to dishonor you. You cannot walk in your calling while crawling for approval. You cannot evolve while constantly explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You must choose comfort or clarity, acceptance or authenticity, survival or sovereignty. The line you draw in the sand may separate you from others, but it unites you with yourself, and that is where your power lives. Not in how many people approve of you, but in how fully you embody who you truly are. People do not change when they are comfortable. They change when they are confronted. They change when the ground beneath them begins to crack. And sometimes that crack begins the moment you remove yourself. Your presence has been cushioning consequences. Your help has been delaying truth. Your support has been enabling avoidance. As long as you are there to catch them, they never have to learn how to stand. There are moments when the most compassionate act is to step back, to let them fall, to let them face the weight of their own decisions without interference. Growth demands pressure, and pressure does not exist where rescue is guaranteed. You cannot grow for someone else. You cannot force evolution into a person who is shielded from adversity. Sometimes the most powerful transformation is born in your absence. You are not responsible for carrying the emotional immaturity of others. You are not here to fix what they refuse to acknowledge. Your constant involvement creates a false sense of security, a fantasy where mistakes have no price, where behavior has no mirror, where dysfunction flourishes in the soft soil of your overextension. Withdrawing is not abandonment. It is the recognition that your energy has become a substitute for someone else's responsibility. It is the sacred decision to stop interfering with the very process that could transform them. Because nothing changes until something is allowed to break. When you are always present, you become the buffer between action and outcome. You silence the feedback loop that pain was designed to deliver. But pain is not the enemy. Pain is the messenger. Pain is the teacher. And without it, the lesson is postponed. When you remove your presence, you allow discomfort to do its work. People learn who they are in the silence after you stop speaking for them. They hear their own excuses for the first time. They feel the weight of decisions they used to place on your shoulders. The mirror no longer reflects you, it reflects them. And that reflection can spark a fire that comfort could never ignite. Growth begins at the edge of chaos, when the familiar collapses, when the safety net disappears, when the voices that once reassured fall silent. In that void, the inner voice awakens, the one that was buried beneath dependency, the one that whispers, this is yours to fix, yours to face, yours to figure out. Your absence is not cruelty, it is clarity. It tells the truth more effectively than words ever could. It speaks a language that commands respect without saying a thing. When you stop showing up for dysfunction, dysfunction is forced to meet itself and the confrontation is unavoidable. Some people will never grow until they are left alone with their patterns. As long as you keep showing up, they don't have to look in the mirror. As long as you keep giving, they don't have to earn. As long as you keep fixing, they don't have to change. Your withdrawal becomes the wall they must climb. And every step up that wall rewrites who they believe themselves to be. You are not helping when your help becomes habitual. You are not loving when your love becomes rescuing. You are not serving when your presence prevents self-realization. People do not evolve under the weight of someone else's protection. They evolve under the weight of their own choices. Walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is a signal to life that you are no longer participating in cycles that steal your soul. It is the moment you stop planting seeds in soil that refuses to be tilled. When you walk away, you do not close the door to love. You open the door to truth. And truth is the only path to authentic growth. Some people will hate you for it. They will accuse you of being cold, distant, ungrateful. They will project their discomfort onto your decision. But their discomfort is the very thing they've avoided by keeping you close. And now, stripped of your shelter, they are left with their raw, unfinished selves. What they do with that is not your burden. You are not God. You are not the savior of their story. You are a chapter, perhaps a powerful one, but not the author. And to believe otherwise is to carry a weight that was never yours. Growth belongs to the individual. You can inspire it, you can model it, but you cannot do it for them. Stepping back is not passive, it is potent. It demands strength, discipline, and unshakable clarity. It is far easier to continue the cycle than to interrupt it. Withdrawal is disruption. It is the refusal to co-sign behaviors that damage both you and them. And in that refusal, you introduce accountability. People cling to the familiar, even when it hurts them. Your presence becomes their excuse to stay the same. But when you remove the comfort, they are forced to ask different questions. They are forced to build tools. They are forced to seek wisdom, because now they must walk the path with their own feet. You have a choice. You can be the anesthetic that delays the surgery or the absence that ignites healing, but you cannot be both. You cannot make people grow and protect them from growing pains. The moment you step back, you step into truth, and the truth always provokes transformation if it's allowed to breathe. You must trust that the struggle has purpose, that suffering, when faced directly, can become sacred, that collapse precedes construction, that loss makes room for learning, but only when we stop preventing it. Only when we allow people to feel the full impact of their decisions. You will be misunderstood, but that misunderstanding is temporary. The self-awareness you spark through distance is eternal. You are not walking away from them, you are walking toward yourself. And in doing so, you invite them to do the same. When the training wheels come off, there is wobbling, there is fear, there are falls, but eventually there is balance, there is control, there is flight, and none of that is possible while someone else holds the seat. Withdrawal is not the end of connection, it is the beginning of maturity. It is the invitation to rise, to reach, to rebuild. And not everyone will accept it, but those who do, those who stare down the silence and rise to meet it, they are the ones who will never need rescuing again. Because now they know who they are without you. They know what they can endure. They know how to navigate storms without leaning on someone else's sail. And that knowledge is more powerful than anything you could ever give. Let the discomfort do its work. Let the silence echo. Let the distance speak, because what it says cannot be ignored. Every moment you engage with another human being, you are setting a precedent. You are drawing a map of your worth with every word you accept, with every tone you tolerate, with every boundary you reinforce or fail to. You do not simply attract what you want. You attract what you reflect. You don't get treated the way you hope to be. You get treated the way you allow. People are watching you more closely than you think. They're reading your reactions like a script. They're testing what they can get away with, not because they're evil, but because human behavior operates on response and feedback. If you never speak up when something feels wrong, you've just told them it's right. Silence is consent. Avoidance is permission. Tolerance is training. The way you respond in discomfort teaches them what you will sacrifice. If you smile through disrespect, you've labeled it acceptable. If you stay present in the face of manipulation, you've taught them you will endure it. Every time you ignore the knot in your stomach, you train others to ignore it too. Every time you betray your intuition to avoid conflict, you tell the world you're negotiable. You teach them with your energy, with the firmness in your voice, with the certainty in your decisions, with how quickly you walk away when something violates your spirit. You're not just living, you're constantly broadcasting your self-worth. And they're constantly adjusting to the frequency you emit. If you are always available to people who are never there for you, you teach them that your time has no value. If you make excuses for those who repeatedly hurt you, you tell them they don't need to change. If you overextend yourself just to keep someone close, you show them that your boundaries are elastic, and what bends without resistance will eventually break without notice. The world will treat you the way you present yourself to it, not the way you dream of being treated, not the way you wish in silence. You can scream self-love all day long, but if your actions whisper self-abandonment, that is what people will hear. You can read every book on confidence, but if you allow mistreatment without consequence, your library means nothing. What you allow is what continues. What you reinforce is what multiplies. What you ignore is what grows roots. You become complicit in the very dynamics that exhaust you, not because you want them, but because you've become too accustomed to them. Comfort in dysfunction becomes a prison disguised as peace.